say for our international viewers? We're ready?
I learned that he'd been with the college like 50 years and they'd run our commencement ceremonies for the previous 35.
Yep. Yep.
Len mentioned that last night.
Welcome back. The board made a motion and approved to come out of executive session. Vice Chair Stone?
Yes. The executive session, the subjects discussed were pending or possible litigation and matters relating to collective bargaining negotiations. No formal action was taken by the board in executive session.
Thank you. Going forward, I am going to go through the items for approval. They were sent to you in your board packet. Some will be discussed. And the reason why I'm doing this early is because we have a presentation and I know we will be losing a trustee shortly to other obligations, not period. Okay, so, but oh my goodness, so much is happening. I also, Melody Baker, our new another new trustee had joined us, and I want to give her an opportunity as well to introduce herself to the college community. Wonderful.
Thank you. Well, lovely to be here. I am absolutely delighted to serve on this board. I look at community colleges as such an incredible opportunity for all students. And, you know, like you said, no matter what background you're from, you can really find value in taking some really high quality courses at a reasonable cost. My background, I'm a statistician, mathematician, quantitative methods, that's my focus area. I have a small business, Q&A stats, and I do a lot of program evaluation for the state. And I also manage and run policy focused in on mathematics nationally. My focus area is at the post-secondary level and also high school. Admissions, multiple math pathways, modernizing math, that type of work. I've been on a lot of boards at the state level and at the national level. If there's any other questions or things that I can answer, I've been in education for 20 years, and that's it.
Make sure you introduce yourself to Colleen Quinn over in the corner.
Yes. Hi, how are you, Colleen?
She's excited.
Yes.
I'm math.
So, love math, right?
Math. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, also, let me just read this verbatim. We will be adding an ad hoc nomination committee to the June 30th Board of Trustees meeting agenda for selection of the next slate of officers. At the June meeting, we will need to appoint a chair for that ad hoc committee and ask if any other trustees would be willing to serve on the committee. It should be noted that the chair of the nominating committee and other members of the committee cannot self-appoint for any of the officer positions, chair, vice chair, or secretary. So this should be considered before anyone agrees to be a part of the committee. The nominations committee chair should ask for nominations and provide a brief report at the June and July Board of Trustees meeting. A vote for selection of officers will be held at the September 29th Board of Trustees meeting during executive session, and the newly voted slate of officers along with the votes for each position should be announced for the record once coming out of executive session. The terms of officers will be for a 2-year term effective the date of the September board meeting. And we can provide more details about the nomination process. I just want to note, if you joined 6 years ago or yesterday or last week, you are able and welcome to run for any office. There's no waiting period or any time like that. So, yes. How exciting is that? All right. Moving right along, for board's approval, excuse me, I have on the consent agenda Board of Trustees minutes for March 31st, April 28th.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Just had one on page 39, there is one correction. It says it was noted there has been an increase in 29 years. It should say it was noted there has not been an increase in 29 years. That has to do with the contract renewal with the county,
Okay,
where the stipend hasn't gone up in 29 years, kind of important.
thank you, Joe. So I have a motion to approve the Board of Trustees minutes, April 28th minutes, pending
Or as
correction,
As amended, yeah.
as amended.
Amendment.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'm going to skip for a moment the draft budget because I know that's gonna take a little bit more time, if that's okay. I'm moving down to the curriculum, student success and diversity. For approval, we have 4 items in which we talked about in depth at the curriculum, student success and diversity committee meetings. I'm gonna ask Adium if you can give me high-level overview of the 4 items. Agreement advanced studies for Tapestry Charter School, agreement affiliation OTA Rochester, agreement WFD Vertex, and fees authorized to be paid by SUNY Erie for 2021-22 consultant services for WFD.
Good morning. Real briefly on the advanced study tapestry, that is just an extension of our relationship with the K-12 and allowing those students to do our advanced study with no tuition. They do follow under the Buffalo Public School sort of territory, so this is just to really extend. We do have some programs that we're offering there right now, particularly with their seniors, so we're just asking the board to approve and extend that to the Tapestry Charter School. Any questions on that? Great. And then the OTA Rochester, that's, again, is really to extend our internship opportunities with that as well. Our OTA program is doing really well. And so this is another opportunity to really just create even more footprint for our students to have the ability to do their internship and have an extensive experience in that field. Great. And then I'm going to have Katie help me a little bit with workforce, if you don't mind, Chairwoman. Those are the 2 agreements that Katie Marshall has been leading our workforce. Thank you.
So the first one is for the Raytheon / they changed their name from Raytheon to Vertex. This is a rental agreement. So we rent space at our Auto Tech Center at South Campus so that Raytheon can provide auto training to General Motors. So this is just a rental renewal for that space. We're slightly increasing the price for the new year and through 2025. Any questions about that? And then the next one is the fees authorized for service for ARC training facility. So ARC provides fee for service training to some workforce development companies that we work with. They're providing training to Unifrac specifically, and they're increasing their rates for the new year. And so this is just a approval to increase their rates. The rate increase gets passed on to the company that we work with, so it doesn't come out of our budget.
So can I ask you a question
Yes.
about, I'm sorry, the Raytheon
Yes.
opportunity? Are there cancellation clauses that allow us, should we decide to relocate services?
Yes, and there hadn't been, but in this one, we wrote in that we could withdraw from the contract with 45 days notice to the company.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Also, for the new trustees, the agenda should go out about a week prior to the board meeting. And if you have any questions regarding any of the materials in that interim period, feel free to reach out and we can discuss, further. For the Budget and Audit and Human Resources Committee, chaired by Jeff Stone, may I just have a motion? Well, Jeff, do you want to go over items 1 and 2, disposal of materials, and Toshiba MFD's buyout?
Very quickly, nothing controversial on the disposal of materials list to my eye, unless anyone from the college wants to see it otherwise. Basically, it's end-of-life equipment being outplaced as we do every month. As for the Toshiba buyout purchase, I think this is great. This is a lease purchase arrangement with pretty high fees and costs over the next 5 years. And basically what we're doing is paying a lump sum now of some, $55,000 or so. And in exchange, we get out from under a long string of obligated payments. So $58,000 buys us 71 fairly decently working printers, as I understand it, copiers here on campus that have been lightly used during the pandemic. And they may be a little older, but they're not really in bad shape or at the end of their useful life. So by paying $58,000 and undertaking this buyout, we save ourselves, well, we would have paid, the annual lease rate is $80,000. So this would save $22,000 in the first year, and then it's zero after that. If ever there was a no-brainer, this to me looks like it. So unless anyone has a contrary view, this is a great thing to say yes to.
I'll move it. Can I just ask just a quick question on this? Once we purchase them, so I should ask 2 questions. When they were leased, was there a service agreement as well? And once we purchase it, will we still have service for those?
I do note that
machine?
parts are available for 4 more years because
Okay.
that was asked, and whether there's a service agreement, I'll have to defer. I don't know.
Scott, do you know?
Yeah, they covered under service
Okay.
agreement. They're not end of life.
Just curious, really.
5 more years is their expected end of life cycle, so
Okay.
And they
Great,
did nail
great.
down the availability of parts. That's often
Great.
why you lose a piece of
Yeah.
equipment, even though it's good.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I would recommend both be approved.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve 1 and 2?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what I want to do now, and again, pardon me for going back and forth, but Jeff, I would like for you to take on the board approval for the SUNY Erie 2022-2023 draft budget.
Thank you. This, Madam Chairwoman, this is a very important, our most important piece of business in the whole year. And what I decided to do with this, having been involved in several robust meetings of the Budget and Audit and Human Resources Committee and many side discussions, is to, and with knowledge that we have at least 4 new trustees or relatively new trustees who may not have gone through the budget process before, what I have done is go through all of this carefully in our materials, as well as my own knowledge of prior meetings, and in a fairly quick way, I pulled out what I considered to be the key information that if I was a relatively new trustee, or any of us, should have also in the whole college community at the tip of our tongue. First thing I want to do, though, is thank ARTA in particular for an enormous amount of work that went into the production of the budget. ARTA is our comptroller, and of course, she's not the only one involved. David, obviously, Bill, Reuter, very central to this, and many others, I'm quite sure. But I know ARTA has been cited by Dave and Bill as being very crucial to what is in front of us now. And I would say it's very hard to put a budget together with this degree of uncertainty surrounding us. What is going to happen with the early retirement? What is happening with those 2 pots of money that the state has identified but not clearly allocated to various colleges? What's happening with federal stimulus? What about the state budget? All of this is in play, and you ask college officials to come up with a budget and the board of trustees to approve a budget and send it to the county. It's a challenge. So what we all have to realize is that this is the best effort at this point in time to identify where the college is or likely to be, and realize that budget amendments in the midst of a pandemic and with the challenges we face are no doubt part of our future. So I wanted to thank ARTA and everyone involved at the college first. But here's the key points, and these are in no particular order, but I think if we could all internalize or listen, as Dave mentioned before, sometimes you have to hear things again and again before they actually sink in. I know I'm that way. So these are some key points. Some are familiar, some are not, but right down the line in no particular order. Our operating revenue is $90 million. These are all round numbers. This is down 13 million from last year, and the 13 million is essentially the federal stimulus piece. So 103 was a little artificial. 90 is our revenue budget. Now we look right over to our operations budget, our operating expenses, and we see, let's call it 99. It's 98.7 million, but there's about an 8.7 to $9 million gap, and that is going to be covered at this point out of our available fund balance, which, as Dave said earlier, has been rapidly shrinking. But those are the numbers. So what kind of budget do we have? A $98 million expense budget, a $90 million revenue budget, and a gap of about 8. So those are important for all trustees to grasp, and everyone in the college community to really
Jeff,
understand where we are.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes. Our expense budget at the moment is 98.7 million, and our revenues are about 90 million. So that's the gap that we've heard David and Bill and others talk about around this table, several meetings, budget meetings. Where's that money coming from? We can't manufacture dollars. There are possibilities for it. Full transparency here, money could come, but if you say we're going to create a budget based on what could happen on the revenue side, that's just irresponsible leadership. So we have to take the snapshot now, and this is the snapshot. It's 98.7 on the expense side and 90 million on the revenue side. Our FTEs for the 21-22 budget are down 8.3%. Again, not any particular order here. I just was picking stuff up as I was reading it. The budget contains a 3% tuition increase. This is the first one in at least two or 3 years, and there's only 1 in 5 years, I think, has been. Someone may correct me on that, but it's been very infrequent. And part of the thinking on the tuition increase is that, yes, we want to be respectful of the fact that a lot of our students might have trouble with any tuition increase or even the current level, but we also have a lot of outside funding sources. We have foundation aid, we have scholarships, we have TAP, we have Pell Grants that do drive money to our students, and to the extent our bills to them go up, they may well be covered, especially with the state budget having contained an increase in the TAP maximum allowance that will allow us to rather painlessly obtain additional revenue. How much? $898,000. It's about a $900,000 number from the 3% tuition increase. None of us are thrilled about raising tuition. Let the record clearly show that. But we do have a $9 million gap to deal with. And we have to do what pieces we can and then see and do everything that we can to close this gap as fiduciaries for the community and the college. The technology fee is of note. That is going from $20 to $25 per credit hour. And I thought to myself, oh, a fee increase, that's not going to be much. Well, it is. It's $700,000 more, almost equal to the tuition increase. So one reaction I had to that, and I guess I'll leave that out as a question for when I'm done, is, man, that's a lot. I'm fine with it, and I seem to think that the fee is sort of under the same type of arrangement I just talked about with TAP and Pell and so forth. But I was surprised that a 3% tuition increase generates $898 and a technology fee generates $700. I would have thought there would be a bigger gap between those numbers. So I'll listen for an explanation of that. There are 2 one-time pots of aid that are in the New York State budget that was just adopted. One is $60 million, and that's sort of a generalized pile of money that's to go to all SUNY schools under arrangements that are to be figured out. Now, the key there is to realize SUNY schools. It doesn't say community colleges. In fact, community colleges, as we have all painfully become aware over the years, are really the stepchildren in the SUNY arrangements. They send a lot of money to the 4 years and a lot less money to the community colleges. So I'm not real optimistic that out of that 60 million, 3 or 4 million is going to descend on Erie Community College. It's not. But that money is out there, and importantly, that is not in the budget. Any revenues related to that is not in the budget. Same with 53 million under the New York State budget for the hiring of new faculty throughout the SUNY system. 53 million doesn't go a long way when it's the entire state of New York and all the 4 years and all the community colleges. So we shouldn't be looking at those numbers and saying, oh, there's our rescue. But that money is not in the budget and could be on the positive side if it comes through once the state finishes its process for allocating that money. Importantly, we're using $9 million of fund balance to balance this budget out of a fund balance of approximately currently at the end of August 22, so the end of this fiscal year, projected to be about $14 million. So think about that, $14 million. We don't even have that now. That's the surplus that will be created this year, and we'll get to 14 at the end of August. But there, assume 14, we use 9, we're down to 5. That's down from a high of about 18, I think, three years ago. We should have, based on our policy, a reserve fund of between $16.3 and $24.5 million. That's based on the policy that we have that 2 months to 3 months, minimum, maximum, of operating expenses should be in that reserve fund. So remember those numbers, 16.3 out of 24.5 based off our $98 million of expenses. Where are we? We're at 14, not even the 16.3, and we're about to spend 9 of it on this budget, subject to amendment and changes that might come. This is unsustainable. We have to all realize that. Everyone has to pitch in and figure out what piece of the puzzle they have influence over. And a lot of it's the trustees, but we've got to look at the faculty, the administrators. Everybody in the mix has to think, how can we make this place thrive? For the students who we all saw last night at the graduation, keep them in mind. We have got to, we can't have 14, spend 9, and hope for the best a year from now. The doors will be locked. So we got to figure it out. There's $1.5 million in vacancy control fund. This is a concept for the newer trustees that, I hope I explain it correctly. It's basically 1.5 of almost unfilled positions, but it's where new people who have to get hired get budgeted. They come in, money comes from this pot. When someone leaves, the money goes into the pot, and they maintain roughly a 1.5 million fund within the budget to make it possible to do essential hiring throughout the course of the year. And that's in there, but I wouldn't characterize that as 1.5 million that reduces the 9 to 7.5. It's more active than that. David mentioned the retirement incentives. Neither the costs associated with that nor the savings, if any, associated with that are in the budget right now. So obviously, that is where we as trustees are hoping that we get a response from the college community, the administrators, particularly, and the faculty members, that if there is a time when you can see your career at the community college as having been terrific, and now making this really a personal sacrifice, which I know will be a lot for administrators and faculty alike. But if there ever is a time when you're flipping a coin and seeing how you want to conclude your career in the best way for SUNY here in community college, taking advantage of this retirement incentive is got to be at the front of everyone's mind. If it isn't, it's just going to be worse and more painful and more difficult for we as trustees and everyone involved to make decisions. So I don't know what that will yield, but that will be part of the solution. If we don't use the 9, some of the savings will come from people saying yes to the retirement incentive. Our current spending, people sometimes were accused of profligate spending, and there has been mismanagement over the course of years, for sure. There's no quarter of the college that is blameless, or the state or the community in this. But our current spending is down 13% from 2018 and 2019. And so when you have that conversation in the community that, oh, they're just spending money like it's going out of style. No. Bill Reuter was mentioned earlier by David, came in, really took a hard look based on his 16 or 18 years at the college and said, here's what we can do in this 2 years while I'm an interim president, and did a lot. David has come in and I'm sure has appreciated Bill's efforts, but still sees a tremendous challenge ahead of him for us. So we've done a lot. We shouldn't be accused of just increasing the budget and hoping for the best. We have cut. We've imposed fiscal discipline as best we can in the midst of a pandemic and decreasing enrollment. So enrollment declines are the issue. Spending cuts simply can't keep up at this point when you have a relatively fixed infrastructure, 3 campuses, a system that's been in place for 50, 60 years, collective bargaining agreements that are geared to a 14,000 student campus. We cannot cut and haven't been able to cut, even with what we've done and what I mentioned, in a way sufficient to keep up with the loss of revenue associated with the 40% decline in enrollment since 2010. That is the hard, cold fact that we're dealing with. We can't manage our way around it or wish our way around it. So it's just hard. It's like steering the Titanic, though. The iceberg is there. It's the enrollment, but we're steering like crazy, but it's hard to move it away.
Quick question, Jeff.
Yeah.
Did you say 13% decreased spending?
Since 1819, yes.
You said since 2019, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
1819 fiscal year.
Okay. Is that something that we can depend on in the future, or was that?
I think so.
potentially
I think it is,
influenced by the
Melody. I think those are permanent cuts and
Okay.
rearrangements. And there's been thought to those, so I don't think that's a fluctuation that's going to bounce back up.
Okay.
Really, the college has shrunk to some extent, obviously. But the Titanic analogy, we can't steer that ship fast enough to keep up with the iceberg that's looming and in the form of this enrollment. So we have to figure out what we're doing, but I don't think that you should fear a bounce up in
Okay.
expenses necessarily. Bill Reuter, if you disagree, please speak up, or Dave, if you do.
Yeah, I agree.
Enrollment declines are the issue, so spending cuts can't keep up. One-time federal stimulus. This is something you'll hear again and again, but it's important to internalize. $28 million has come to the college in the form of federal and state stimulus. 27.5% of millions of that have already been claimed. So it's not as if we've only taken 12 of our 28 and we've got another 16 lying around. This has been incorporated, and it's frankly what's driving our current reserve fund, which would look far worse or be negative, not be at 14 million, if we didn't have this federal stimulus money. But it's not just an overhang where there's positive still out there that we can draw on. Okay, that's really important. Enrollment, I mentioned enrollment, and it drives 80% of our revenues. Yes, tuition, but also state money that comes and other forms of money, TAP, Pell, So our revenue is so dependent on enrollment, and that's why we're in the problem that we're in. And by the way, when you look at the community colleges around New York State, you will see that every community college has suffered an enrollment decline since 2010 in the range of 35 to 42%. We're at 40-ish. So it's not like Erie Community College has suddenly just become unattractive to students. In a sense, it has, but so has community college statewide and nationwide. We got to figure out, what does it look like going forward? I mean, this trustee group has to work on that, and we have to do that all across the nation, because the model right now is not working anywhere in terms of sustained enrollment. We will end 22 with a surplus due to the stimulus, but it masks about a $12 million operating deficit. We have discussed Workday, Banner, and IT issues that have compounded our financial problems, and we continue to address those. Everyone in the room is aware of the headaches and the problems that are coming with that. But it is very significant, and it's adding to our financial problems. Because to the extent we've got expense issues as opposed to revenue issues due to enrollment, the expense issues are largely coming, in my view, from our problems with our IT platform, which is not the fault of anyone here in the room. Scott, you are doing heroic work trying to keep it together. We at the trustees get it, and we are going to be on that problem as best we can. On the tuition hike, 35% of our full-timers receive Pell Grants and 22% get assistance from TAP, and then another group gets a combination. So it really is a fairly well-aided student body, and our tuition is pretty modest still in the $5,000 range for a full year. So certainly we're the most affordable higher education option in the area. The TAP increased under the New York budget, I mentioned that. We do compete, I noticed in our, I think it was in Arda's memo, we compete with 20 other institutions of higher learning within 1 hour drive of where we're sitting right now. Some of them are 4 years and several of them are 2 years. So we're in a tough spot. We're not the only choice in town. Over the past 11 years, our college's staffing has remained relatively flat, even though our enrollment has dropped by almost half. And revenues, as I said, are 80% tied to enrollment. So think about these as we discuss things. I mentioned our policy for the reserve fund. 16.3 to 24.5 is the desired range. We're at 14, going down to 5, unless the adjustments that we've touched on happen. The whole workday situation, I've mentioned enough. Right now, our reserve is at 8.1 million at this moment, and it will go to 14.1 at the end of August 2022. That includes, the difference is the 6 million surplus in the 2021-2022 budget year. So you have to be careful about saying, geez, we're doing great. $6 million surplus this year, what's the problem? That is surplus, that's the stimulus money. And it's masking a real operating deficit closer to 11. Now, one thing that's noted on the positive side, but speculative, is the college has applied for $10 million in operational support from the supplemental support under the American Rescue Plan program. This is unclear. I'm delighted the college applied for that. The American Rescue Plan is filled with money. It's Washington federal dollars going to the state, being dispersed to local education, both secondary and post-secondary. What will come? Who knows? But I would not leap to say that that 10 million is coming. That's a wished-for application. And if some of it comes, great. But at this moment, we have no idea if it will, and that's not in the budget.
To frame that properly, I think the total dollar amount of that grant opportunity nationwide is only like 197 million. So for us to suggest we're going to get 10 million is a huge stretch.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get something.
You got to apply for everything and ask what you need for what you need, and that's great. So again, trustees, our budget, what is it? You'll be out there, what's your budget? I used to say 105 million, 110 million. The proper number is, if you want, 98.7. That's our expense budget, and we don't have the revenues to support that right now. Dave mentioned in many forums, potential fiscal exigency. This, for those who are not familiar with it, and I include myself in that to some extent, is as Dave has said, an amorphous concept that basically has been developed by the group of university and college presidents nationwide to describe a situation that is financially unsustainable in the medium to long run, maybe even in the short run, and requires drastic attention, action, unusual actions to take place. And that has to be examined in the context of applicable contracts with our bargaining units, state law, local law, county involvement, et cetera. So it's very difficult to figure out, what we do if we just continue to drift downward and spend the expense fund. It's not something that can be sustained. And that's the term that will be used in a broad way to talk about something drastic that has to be done to keep the place open. One positive note that we should all be aware of as trustees is that the state has put a floor under our funding equal to 100% of our prior year's funding. That is huge for us because if it were left to the old system of just enrollment-based aid, then you lose 20% of your enrollment, your state subsidy goes down by 20%. It does not. They used to have a 98% floor, and they moved it to 100 in the budget. So we won't do worse than last year's state aid for the foreseeable future. But the problem is our expenses continue to go up. We have the IT platform issue, and we have continuing enrollment that, state aid isn't our only revenue source. So tuition goes down, and other sources go down. Yep.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? That 100% state aid, that was with the most recent state budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Up from 98. We asked for that as colleges and got it.
Great.
Wish it were more, or wish it had happened a couple years earlier. We suffered under the 98 because that was a 2% cut in the last couple of years. Now, continuing briefly on the positive side, Erie County gave us an extra $1 million in operating aid. And new trustees, there's a thing called maintenance of effort with a community college. Amanda, you may know this from being your student trustee back in the day. But what that means is that the sponsor must maintain effort at a continued fiscal level in order for the state to continue to chip in money. And so they can't say, oh, the state just bailed out Erie Community College. Erie County's in trouble, let's cut their subsidy. No, that is not how it works. They have to maintain effort, M-O-E, maintenance of effort. And when something gets added to the maintenance of effort, it's great because that means that the county has promised that indefinitely into the future because they can't cut it once they say it. So we have to express gratitude to our county partners. Whenever you guys have a chance, to be with the county executive, the county legislature members. You got to say, thank you for remembering us. We had a very tough time in that pandemic, and that extra $1 million, not just last year, but into the future now under that arrangement I just described is really important. Whether any more money can come in that mode is unknown and not budgeted for, but.
Yeah, one thing I also want to clarify is we've talked about the fact that the county executive has announced that there is a $2.5 million retirement incentive pool that he's contributing to the college. That is not part of maintenance of effort. Right. So that's a one-time initiative. So, I just want to make it clear to everyone in the room and on the board that, again, that's not a long-term budget plus for us, but it does represent, again, a fantastic opportunity for us to better align our budget with our actual, or our spend with our actual budget needs.
And that's a one-time program, right?
Yes.
Our employees aren't to expect that next summer.
Definitely.
This is a one-time only
Right,
situation.
and it's not, an iterative thing. We've opened the window to be such that take it, and I've also made it clear that there's no program that's ever going to be sweeter under my tenure.
We can't afford
to
to do it otherwise. The numbers that I'm sharing here demand that we put the highest and best retirement incentive on the table right now, because if we're going to game this thing and it just doesn't make sense, it's not going to work. So it goes back to my hope that this is the time to carefully study. If you're at or near retirement age or able to make that decision, this is the time.
Mark really stepped up for that, because ordinarily we pay for that ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's putting that money up 100%.
That's not recurring money, though. That's a really important point. The $1 million is recurring money.
That's
Maintenance of
fantastic.
effort.
That's included in that 1 million, or that floor, the 90, or the 100% floor.
No, that's, the million, well, there's two floors. So the 100% floor is the state saying, we will never give you less state aid, barring another 9/11, than we gave you last year. Up from, we could cut you 2% to, no, we'll keep you there.
So
That's the state.
Got it.
The county says they're supposed to give us about 33% of our budget. It doesn't amount to that, but when they do that, except for the special situation that Dave, on the early retirement, they don't cut that. Maintenance of effort can't be cut or the state money goes away.
Got it.
So that's really important, and it won't be cut. It really won't. So I guess the last note or two I have is the budget does not contain anything for collective bargaining increases, changes, or decreases. It was too hard to predict at this point where we are with our bargaining units. Contracts expired last August 31st with the administrators and the Faculty Federation. And I think we've all been in a mode of survival and pandemic and trying to figure out where we are. It's difficult to even constructively negotiate contracts. We know that we certainly have financial problems. We have management issues that we care about. And certainly I think we all look forward to partnering with the rest of the college community, faculties, administrator, everyone else, to try to solve the problem. But right now, the budget, for this snapshot here in May, freezes the situation under the collective bargaining as it is right now. So that's another place of movement, up or down, in the budget. And then I guess the last note was just listening to all this and reading all this, not just now, but for months and in many meetings. Our traditional model is virtually unsustainable, if not completely unsustainable. We have RPK suggesting, in light of all these facts, what our realignment could look like, what it might look like as a model going forward, where we start, at least. This is a big job that we have to do. But at this point, our immediate duty is to pass a budget that is at least nominally balanced, in the sense that, yes, it's balanced, but only because of the use of $9 million of reserve funds out of 14, down to 5, 11 million below our minimum level of reserve fund. This is not a good picture. It is not sustainable, and we need everyone to partner in it, from the highest levels of the state to the hourly workers here on campus. I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. Are there any questions, comments? So I would like to ask for a motion to approve the SUNY Erie 2022-2023 draft budget with subcategories of maintenance of effort, operation budget, tuition and fee schedule.
As presented and circulated, I'll move that.
You gonna approve all three at the same time?
Well, probably,
We'll do it separately?
yeah, I think, yeah, because
Okay.
we have to do
Yeah.
the maintenance, I think there's 3 resolutions.
Yep, there's
tuition.
3
Yeah.
resolutions. Okay, so we can do them separately.
Yeah.
So-
Let's do them one at a time.
Let's start with the draft budget.
I'll move the draft budget as circulated and presented and
Second.
discussed, be approved and submitted to the county.
Chair Linehan, Trustee Linehan, or
Second.
former chair, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Draft budget is approved. May I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 maintenance of effort resolution?
I'll move it as presented.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Maintenance of effort is approved. 2022-2023 operation budget resolution.
Before we go to that, I just wanted, I left that one question about the 700,000 for the technology fees compared to the like 878 for the 3% increase. I was just curious about that. I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but was anyone else surprised to
Yeah.
hear
It seems like a large
that?
number. Yeah.
Yeah, what's up
Yeah.
with that?
Did you say
Yeah.
that it went from 20 to 25?
Yeah, because could the technology fees on a per credit hour basis with the tuition increases on a per FTE basis. So a student that is taking 15 credits, that fee increase would be $75. So that's why it's a different amount. One is based upon full-time equivalent, the other is based upon the credit hours the student is taking. We looked at both the tuition rate as well as the technology fees, and Erie Community College, after the adoption of this budget, will probably be approximately right in the middle of the 30 community colleges as far as the fees and the tuition rate. The other point you mentioned, it has been prior to this year, 3 of the past 4 years, there has been no tuition increase. So we've had an effective 0.75% tuition rate increase over the prior 4 years. And to your point about TAP and Pell, Pell is the federal financial aid, and that covers all college living expenses, tuition, fees, housing, et cetera, where TAP is only for tuition. It just covers tuition. And you mentioned the TAP, that was part of the state legislation, this past budget. That does not impact Erie Community College because our tuition is below that TAP. So it has no benefit to our students because we're not above that TAP limitation. It's generally only the 4-year schools and maybe like Nassau Community College, 1 or 2 of the other community colleges, students would be helped by that. So when the state says they're helping higher ed, that help is not directed generally at the community college level. And then just other couple points, you mentioned about the surplus, $14 million at year end, 8/31/22, that will be estimated. That, you mentioned stimulus and federal stimulus. That $14 million is after the application of $27 million of federal stimulus over the past 3 years. Doing the math, a $14 million positive fund balance turns into a $13 million negative fund balance if not for the federal stimulus. Thus, this college would not be in existence. So it certainly emphasizes your points about what needs to still be done. We're not out of the woods. But we are certainly trending in the right direction. But we cannot rely on one-time stimulus money to fund the operations of the college. We need to do it on our own.
Bill, would you also comment on the technology fee history? You talked about tuition increases and the fact that we've only had 3% increase over the past 4 years. Has the technology fees mirrored that pace?
I don't think we did any fee increases over the past 4 years, honestly. I know at one point we did a per FTE basis for technology fee. And it has throughout the state gone on a per FTE basis versus a credit hour basis. The general trend is on a per credit hour basis. And we're just seeing, the proliferation of all the technology, all the online learning, the cyber tech the college sustained. We're putting a lot of resources into our infrastructure as well as our ERP and our previous ERP. So that helps to fund. The technology fee is a revenue fee. All other fees charged to a student are service fees. Service fees have to fund the specific service for which the fee is imposed. A technology fee is the only non-service fee. It's again called a revenue fee, and it could go to help support operations of the college, not directly tied to the student.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Bill, thank you. I would add that I'm really glad about the newer trustees coming on board. For a while, we were operating at only 6 trustees, which made even a quorum difficult. But more importantly, it deprived the board of voices that are essential from a cross-section of the community, all the interest groups involved. The community is nothing but a big collection of individuals and interest groups, right? So we want to have as diverse a board as we can, and we're getting there, and I'm feeling good about that. But even now, we still could use, I think, two more members. These are big problems, so really glad to have you guys in the mix. One quick correction, Arda, to your marvelous memo that you did to us. On page 46, it says, as of April 2021, SUNY Erie Community College released a report by RPK Group, and that was, of course, this April, right? April 2022. So we've only had that for a month or two, but that's important. That's on page 46 of our materials. Any questions more on the technology fee part of it? I think I'm content to vote yes on that. But maybe Travis, is that an issue for students? I mean, how are students reacting to that technology fee? Is that an issue that we should be more sensitive to than I am right now?
In what way?
Well, it's going up by 25.
Well, it's
bucks
$5.
or $5. Yeah,
$75 a year.
I think so.
For 15 credits.
Oh, well, that'd be $150 a year then, right?
75. Yeah.
Right, because it's per semester.
For 30 credit. You're
right. I know I'm obviously as a student a little hesitant to vote for any increase to fees. Just
and no other fees are increasing.
Even I mean, going to a school that's a little bit more affordable, it's still not everyone qualifies for all the aid. I know a lot of people do qualify for aid. Certain programs qualify for more aid than others. But I also understand that a 3% tuition fee doesn't seem too great. I mean, $6 per credit hour. I mean, that'd be something I'd be willing still to pay. Technology fees. I don't really see extra technology coming on board.
No.
From the fees I see. I know we have had issues with Workday. So paying an extra fee, I could see students being upset that some of the technology doesn't necessarily work all the time. But if we're able to use the fees for something that's going to work, I mean, technology is a huge part of what we have to utilize here.
Yeah, the technology is a sore spot for sure, but no other fee is going up. That's important to note. And all of this that I've talked about is in our materials and can be carefully parsed, but I think those were the highlights as far as I was concerned. So,
So I believe we have a motion on the table for the operating budget.
we did. Oh, yes, the third one.
The second one.
Second one.
Oh, second one.
Yep. So motion, Lynn seconded. May I? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Operation budget resolution has been approved. The third item is the SUNY Erie 2022-2023 tuition and fee schedule resolution.
I will move that we adopt that as proposed, discussed, and circulated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. At this we do have a few items for board information. That is also within your packet. The LMHF Financials ECC, April 2022. LMHF Financials ECC, January to April 2022. The minutes for April 13, Curriculum, Student Success, and Diversity. Also, there are 6 items under the Budget and Human Resources for board information. Do you want to elaborate on any of these items, Jeff?
Not at any great length.
Okay.
Just look at human resources was straightforward. Supplier report, straightforward. The rentals and waivers were typical. The capital projects, typical. There's a listing there that we get every month. Budget to actual, I think we've covered effectively enough in our budget discussion. And the minutes were exceedingly well prepared. I think we're doing great on the minutes. Those are long, difficult meetings at the budget, at this time of year especially. So those are all for information, and just it's a great package that we have today. Thank you for everyone who was involved with putting that together. That's it.
Thank you. We have minutes under strategic planning and assessment. Carrie, do you have anything you want to add to this? If not, that's okay. I know Carrie is kind of multitasking right now. All right, and then we also have, oh, there you go.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Technology issue, so I have my camera off because that seems to be helping with my audio.
Okay.
For the strategic planning and assessment, it looks as though the actually it's not our most recent minutes that were attached. It looks like we had inadvertently attached from our April meeting. We actually met on May 10th. So I'll just ask Kelly to please circulate to the board the minutes from 5:10, because those are our minutes from 4:12.
Okay, I was just told that we can't include them yet because they have to be approved by your committee. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you're fine.
All right, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I was off a month in my. Okay, that makes sense. So at the 5:10 meeting, we reviewed a few areas that are our standing agenda items because they are informing our strategic plan going forward. Kathy Colesto gives a good overview on the SUNY area Excels report card, and we spent a decent amount of time going through that information. Dr. Sagai gave us a middle states update, given that our response is due back September 1st. I think we're spending a lot of effort in that area right now. And then we also added a new item that we discussed, which was how we will conduct our academic unit reviews going forward. If Kathy or Dr. Sagai or Dr. Balkin, who wasn't able to make that meeting, want to add any sort of high-level overview to that, I don't think it's necessary at this point, but if anybody else wants to chime in, I'll allow them to do that right now.
Okay, I just got a thumbs up from Audio that she's okay for now.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I can definitely not see anybody, so everybody's far away.
It's okay. I'll translate.
Okay. And then we did since Dr. Balkin was unable to be at that last meeting, we did table our discussion of just sort of hammering out Dr. Balkin's big goals for the college, so we can start getting something down in writing towards our strategic plan going forward. So we'll work on that at the next meeting. And we're also looking to potentially have a presentation by EAB, who we've worked with in other capacity, and we feel we might be able to use in order to write our strategic plan going forward. So we're hoping to get a presentation from them to see how they could help us. And our next meeting is going to be June 14th. June 14th. If anybody else wants to join us, the more the merrier. The more people we have, the better we do. And I think that's it for now, unless anybody else wants to add anything.
No. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay.
we also have for board information, and then we're going to go to the presentation for today. The minutes from marketing, April 6, 2022, marketing.
Right. So that reflects the April meeting. We also did meet the first week in May with Dr. Vulcan, with Erickson, and Paula, Sandy, and myself. We're basically coming up with a new internal and external marketing structure. We're meeting again first week of next month. There weren't any items that were actually approved in that meeting, but we are reinstituting the marketing committee as a solid vehicle, which it has not been over the past couple of years.
Thank you. And regarding the policy and governance committee, our new trustee, Melody Baker, decided to chair that committee for us. So she's
Very
working
nice.
with Kate to do some transition.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
With that, I know he has been waiting very patiently. But Guided Pathways, Dr. Vulcan and I had a chance to participate in the 3-day workshop or presentation from SUNY regarding Guided Pathways. That was just really inspiring, and Andy was actually recognized on that call for the work that he has done for SUNY Erie, and this in line with our strategic plan. Well, I'll say middle stage, but I wouldn't leave that out because sometimes that sounds negative. But this is our way to student success in the future, I believe. So,
thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you to the board for having me here tonight. Presentation I'm going to show, I will try to keep as brief as possible. I understand folks' time. This was given back in November. SUNY Erie hosted the New York State Association of College Admissions Counselors here. I see a familiar face who is also a presenter. And it comprised individuals from local high schools as well as some of our four-year partners, really for an opportunity to bridge the gap as to how we can move students from one place to the next. My piece was really to speak to Guided Pathways and what we've done here at the institution over the last 2 or 3 years. With that, the overall goal is to improve rates of college completion, transfer, attainment of jobs with value in the labor market, and most importantly, to achieve equity within those outcomes. And you're going to hear equity is sort of the theme of Guided Pathways. It is a holistic approach to student completion. It is intentional in the delivery of success practices at the institution. It doesn't happen simply by luck. It is fully intentional, and it is really meant to be done at scale across the institution as a whole. Just to take a step back real quick, I don't want to forget, Colleen Quinn was one of the participating co-facilitators with me as we moved through this project since 2019. The two of us were tasked with leading the teams at each of 5 institutes to gain a piece in each of the phases of the student life cycle and best practices that support the end goal, which is success and completion. It is an early awareness of career and transfer goals. It's transparent in its approach to career and academic planning. And again, it's implementation at scale. It is collaborative, both internally and externally. And I'll speak to some of the things that we've done with some of our partners at the high school level and as well at the 4-year level. And not to forget, it is a continuous improvement model. So this is not something where they provide a checklist of items that they say, these are the practices in which you will see your success grow. It is taking those practices that are considered best practices and aligning them to what we do as an institution, finding the things that fit and will be most impactful, and assessing and continuing to grow those ideas as we go forward. So there is no, we've done it, we're done concept. It all focuses around equity. All right, a quick little graph here is that we see in, let's say, the top left, every individual standing on the same size box. All right, it's a mind shift and movement from equality to equity, where we are now providing individuals the specific things that are going to benefit them and lead them to better success. It is a national movement, and this is just to give it a framework of how it's grown. This was actually taken a few years ago. These were participating institutions that started the Guided Pathways movement. So since that, if I were to have a more updated map, I think we'd see a lot more blue dots. It was a few years back where New York State offered an opportunity to SUNY community colleges to engage in this work. There was a cohort of schools that went through it. That was considered cohort 1. We then had signed on in spring of 2019 where we did an assessment of our strengths all across the college, whether it was on the admissions side, on career services side, on teaching and learning, all the components of the student's experience. So we had begun our work with cohort 2, again, back in the spring of 2019. The 4 pillars include clarifying the path for the student, helping students get on a path, keeping students on a path, and ensuring students are learning. So the 5 institutes focused around those 4 themes, as well, most recently our capstone, which is what Chairwoman Wilson had mentioned. It was the capstone that really spoke to sustainability and transferability in equity and leadership. The foundation, we look at what do new students want to know. Students were asked through surveys. Some of the things that rose to the top were, what are career options for me? What are the paths to those careers? What will I need to take? How long will it take? How much aid can I get? So if we know that we have students interested in coming to college and these are the questions they want answered, how can we frame the work that we do to satisfy that and be attractive to students? On the returning student side, very similar. How far along am I if I come back? What will I need to take next term? What if I decide to change my major? Will my credits transfer? Things of that nature. So the first piece, when we talk about Pillar 1 and clarifying student paths to end goals, meta majors, program maps, career and transfer information, and math pathways. And really part of why I'm here today is to speak to some of the things that we have done and implemented, and some of the things that we're working towards. The first one, meta majors, speaks to grouping our programs of study into coherent career fields, career baskets or buckets, so to speak. Before we started this work, our students saw an A to Z list of programs which they had to find what they thought would be appropriate for them. Kathy Colesto in our architecture department once said, a lot of students enter architecture and they change their major not long after. And the question is, well, what got you to enroll? Well, it was at the top of the list, okay? What we did as a college community, we convened 3 meetings back in, would have been January of 2020, including faculty, administrators, staff, to look at our program offerings and try to align them with career areas so that a student who may not be familiar with a particular program of study name, they could at least see a sector and say, you know what, healthcare, that sounds of interest to me. I know I may not be interested in computers and electronic technology. So if you look at our website today, you'll see that those career clusters have been built in for the purpose of then allowing a student, should they enter a program, have a better understanding, if it's not for them, where they can move to. But a second piece to that is how are we working with students on the front end to better identify their end goals and make proper program selections with the student. We talk about program mapping. It is not a cafeteria style model. This is not where a student gets a catalog of 300 electives and are told, pick one. We want to do some very deliberate prescribed planning with the student, with advising and course selection based upon what their interests are, what their skill set is, and where they want to go. We have built these, what we call academic roadmaps within Workday. It's called an academic plan. It's a fluid plan, but it's one that by default a student gets when they enroll at the college that outlines what their path is going to look like going forward. That plan or that tool really is meant to be utilized in conjunction with their advisor to identify, are they on plan, are they off plan? And as they move through their program of study, should the student fall off plan, that is a conversation that the advisor can have with the student to determine how do we get you back on plan. Career and transfer information, which we've embedded through Career Coach in our website. You'll now see that programs of study reference job opportunities, wages, and even a link to get more information should a student see a degree program and then ask, where do I go with this, all right? And math pathways, that was another one that we had on the radar. So that would be pillar number 1. Pillar 2, and I'll try to move pretty quickly. Program clusters. As opposed to that A to Z list, these are the 9 categories that our students would now see with options underneath each of them. Again, for that student who comes to our site, quickly looks and says, I'm not sure what I want to do, we want to try to help them narrow that down, and this is the first part of it. Number 2 is helping students get on a path. That's where we talk about early career and transfer exploration, academic and financial planning, and then integrated and contextualized academic support. Significance to this. It may be a little difficult to see, but this one stuck out during one of the presentations that I had seen. This is giving you statistical information regarding college graduation rates by income level. And what we see here is that students that may have come from the richest income level with below average test scores actually persist and graduate at a higher rate than those with above average scores that come from the poorest income bracket. So there is an equity issue here. Part of this work is for us to identify where can we even that out? Where can we provide supports where needed? And again, in the interest of helping students succeed. The third pillar is looking at monitoring progress, which I just spoke about. Intrusive support, which we've sort of laid some early framework, but I think we have some work to do relative to how are we reaching out early to our students as they enter the college? How are we getting to those students quicker to make sure that they're moving in the right direction, be it in the first 2 to 3 weeks of their first semester or in the first few weeks of their final semester. But we do know that the drop-off of students tends to happen from term 1 to term 2, if not during that first semester. That tends to be the highest point. Providing frequent feedback, and one thing that has come up several times and is something that's being looked at is predictable scheduling. How do we outline for our students what their future is going to be if we don't have a schedule that allows them to properly plan their life and their future around that? So what we want to work towards is to be able to provide a longer term master schedule where a student knows this course I know will not be offered in the spring. This will be offered in the fall. And then they can make the appropriate adjustments based on that.
Quick question. You talk about intrusive support and frequent feedback. Can you share with us the vision of exactly how that's going to be done and by whom?
So one of the ideas that had come up, and I think it's one that we have to sort of solidify, is early outreach to our students within the first 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even the first week, depending. We want an advisor who's assigned to the student, and for those that are unaware, we do have a support structure in place right now for our students, where all students have really a minimum of 3 individuals assigned to them. They have their primary faculty advisor, they have a secondary advisor for the purpose of secondary outreach, should they maybe not be able to connect with their advisor on a certain day or time. And then the third piece is student support, which is a member of our counseling staff. So that student support role is intended for academic support, personal support, but when they sign into Workday, right on their dashboard, they do see that support network, those names, that contact information. It's shifting the mindset that we can't wait for the student to come to us. We need to reach out early on, because again, that biggest drop-off, it tends to be in that first semester. And for those that do, they may not persist to term 2.
I think this is excellent, and along the lines of frequent feedback, is there a documentation tool or something such that the team of 3 SUNY Erie employees understand exactly how they're coordinated and how they're communicating and when they should be communicating?
To be honest, there is not. But that's not to say that we don't have an opportunity to do that. When we went through these institutes, it was interesting, the amount of information that was given to us and the idea sharing amongst the institutions that, I hate to say it, but we had to sort of pick and choose at that point in time. and cover the pieces that had what we felt to be the most overarching and biggest impact. Again, this goes back to the continuous improvement model in that the work is never done. So I think that is going to be a piece that we need to look at as we go forward.
Just so you're aware, I had a conference call with Salesforce yesterday, talking about their CRM tool for this specific point. So it might be one tool that we consider looking forward.
I have a quick question. So in terms of, so I think you might have answered my question. The guided pathway model, would that interface with Banner? Or is there an interface? So for instance, like you said, the students need to be able to map out their pathways. Is that something that would be a tool available in a Banner type book?
I would lean more towards Aleutian Advise, which is a Banner product in a sense. It's an Aleutian product.
Got it.
But that is really a tool that's designed for, it's software designed for advising. Whereas Banner is really more record keeping.
Okay.
Registration, that type of stuff.
But to your point, the nice thing about Banner is it also has all the APIs you need to be able to attach these types of services to. Whereas Starfish, for example, doesn't have APIs, and it's really a standalone tool.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
The fourth pillar, we look at field-specific learning outcomes. We look at active learning throughout and field-relevant experiential learning. One of the topics that came sort of to the top, this was, had to be a year and a half ago, is a concept called Light the Fire experiences. For those that have watched previous College Senate meetings, it has been mentioned in the past, but a Light the Fire experience is intended to be within the first week to 2 weeks of a program, an entry program course in a specific major, an experience that exposes the student not only to what that field or that program is about, but one that engages the student to reinforce the reason why they're there. It is something from an instructional side where I think we, as faculty, can look to say, all right, where can I embed in that first 2 weeks of my course that Light the Fire experience that's going to grab the student, potentially have them ask questions about what they're doing, and open up the conversation to how they're going to move forward, be it in that program or potentially what we call off-ramp the student to a different major that is something that they're more aligned with. So real quick, this is just a snapshot of each of the 4 pillars, and what we did was we identified items within each of those 4 pillars that the college has engaged in. Some are still under development or being worked, but some we have fully implemented. We look at things like co-requisite remediation. This came from, I think, but I could be wrong, Strong Start to Finish, where we look at, with English, a student who may not be college ready, how do we expose them to that 100 level college level course earlier? And we call it the Accelerated Learning Program here, ALP. So essentially a student who may just be short of that cutoff for college level English, we're now going to then assign a secondary co-requisite course that they're going to work with that college level English course so that they're gaining the skills that may not have allowed them to get to the college level on that test or however they were assessed. End result being, we know that students that take a college level course earlier tend to graduate at a higher rate. The longer you push that college level course off, the less likely the student is to graduate. And again, we talk about equity. I think it was the Virginia Community College system, where if you were an African American male and you scored in the lowest level of, I think it was math or English, I can't remember which, their study found that they had a 0% chance to graduate. So the goal is, how do we expose students and get them engaged in college level, 100 level work early to foster that possibility for success. These are just some mindset shifts. Full-time versus part-time. We want to shift towards what is on-plan versus off-plan. We don't expect that every student comes here as a full-time student. That may not be the right plan for that particular student. So we utilize the academic plan to customize what that sequence is going to look like. Prerequisite remediation, shifting to integrated contextualized academic support. We've talked about embedded tutors, things of that nature. The one that I personally like, in-class versus co-curricular, right? They are not two separate things. How do we create program-relevant, active, experiential learning opportunities in the classroom? So those are just some mindset shifts. Cultural shifts. The first one should stand out for those that have never seen this one. It's moving from our students college ready. You know, I wish we had stronger students coming in, because then our graduation would be higher, right? It's shifting that mindset to our colleges student ready. We need to meet the student where they're at. We need to be ready for the student regardless of where they're coming from, what level of be it reading, even habits, right? We need to meet them where they are at, and we need to work with them to identify the pieces that are going to help that particular student. This was just a question slide that came at the end. Really, it was looking at some of our high school partners and four-year partners just on their perspectives and thoughts. One piece that wasn't included on here, which I do want to make mention of, is what we've recently developed for many of our programs is what we call traveled pathways. Traveled pathways is sort of an offshoot of guided pathways, but its purpose and intention is to say, originally, it was a student that leaves Erie Community College and goes on to a four-year school and graduates from X program, whatever X program is. And they were a successful student. We map it backwards to their educational journey here at the community college to say, what are the courses that prepared that student for success at the four-year level? And we've then designed sort of a program flyer, a framework that educates the student on. If you're choosing to move on into a particular program, these are courses you really should consider here at the institution, because we've seen higher success rates of completion at the four-year level. That has then shifted backwards to say, all right, students who are highly successful at SUNY Erie, what did they do in high school to get them ready to come to our program here? Again, a particular program. What was it that they did in their high school that prepared them fully to then be successful with us? Those are being developed by one of our counselors, Mark Mazzone. He's been very passionate about this project. These have been given to some of our local high schools. He's worked with our guidance counselors so that from their end, they can work with their students and help the students see what may be beneficial for them now as they plan to move forward.
So how do we connect our students to the guided pathway program?
Well, two ways. One, it's transparent. It's out there. It's a cultural and operational mindset. Three ways, actually. Two, doing it at scale across the entire institution. And the example I've heard is that you cannot do something big for a small pocket of students and expect big change at the institution. So how do we look at these things, so to speak, and make it so that it's at scale? There was work initially being done, and I defer to Colleen on the math side of the house, right? But there was some work where we wanted to look at how math, from either a co-requisite perspective or STEM versus non-STEM, how do we embed those things, again, across the college where we're making the course relevant to the student? We know we've put academic planning in place for all students. We've put a support structure in place for all students. So these are just really the early pieces. The work's not done. We need to continue to move forward. We need to generate team ideas across the different areas of the college, because whether you're faculty, you're an administrator, your staff, everybody has insights that we can benefit from. It's how do we move that to the next level, I think is the question.
So along these lines, this is a fantastic initiative, and I applaud your efforts, and Colleen, great work here. The thing that I always worry about, especially in the current environment, is how well we're managing the change. And can you kind of talk to any issues or concerns you have with our ability to handle the change management that's required in order to efficiently affect this?
I think my opinion is I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet. I think we are at the point of still having to create awareness and educate.
Well, that's a key component.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so kudos
So
to you.
every opportunity that I can get, whether it's at a conference, invite staff in at a college senate meeting, college day, right, is an opportunity for the team to share with individuals and educate folks.
This is excellent. Do you, are you experiencing any frustration? The difficulties we've had with the rollout of Workday, the general IT platform issues that we're having, is this putting drag on what you're trying to do here, or are you able to insulate from that?
I'm actually a staunch advocate in one regard with Workday, and that is academic planning. I helped build the advising side of Workday, building all the academic plans, and even to the point where we have in a couple of our programs what we call alternate plans. And I want to explain what that is because I think it is important for folks to know. If I'm a student coming to the college and I know my intention is to transfer to a four-year school in a particular school in a particular program, what are those electives that I have to take that I know will get me junior status, right? Or I'm an advisor in general studies and I have a student sitting in front of me that's intention is to go to nursing or to dental or a competitive health program. We've been able to build these plans in the system so that the advisor can then select it and outline specifically either what the courses are for entry to the competitive program, or I'm going to transfer to a four-year school. These are the courses and electives I know are going to get me to junior standing. So it is it's very clear. It's a very clear approach to student academic and course planning. Again, I'm an advocate.
Sure, absolutely. So I think part of what we try to do is go back, right? Because the college adopted this, as Andy mentioned earlier, about 3 years ago. And I know the board is kind of hearing it, maybe you heard pieces, but you're hearing it for the first time. So this is another example where the college should have done this as a college level so that we have the culture shift. So we're going back. The second thing about this is that it's a SUNY sponsor initiative, meaning resources is tremendous for the college. So very little on our part in terms of resource allocation to this type of project. The other important piece, we talked a little bit earlier about our enrollment. Yes, we do have enrollment issue like every other colleges, but the issue that we don't spend a lot of time, and this will help us, is talk about if our students apply, they get admitted to the college, then what happens? Right? Our retention rate is horrendous. Our graduation rate, while I'm very proud yesterday, we lost a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't make it to that stage yesterday. So I think what we're trying to do is go back and really look at this, and this will be part of our strategic planning when we go forward to make sure that the entire college is bought into this, right? It's not the tactic, right? We could deal with the tactic, but it's the mindset, it's the way to look at it. So when our students come that first semester, most of us know students come into a college, that first semester is really the sort of the point where the student either walk out, right? Or it's a matter of time before they do. So I think this type of way of us looking at it will get us to that point. So we could really talk about enrollment initiative and get students, but if we're not able to keep them both in the classroom and outside the classroom, again, we're back to that issue that we don't have students. So I think the guided pathway will help the college to move forward. It will give us a foundation. It will help us meet middle state. It was also one of the questions they asked, and we presented some of this. So I think this is a sort of a foundation model for us to talk about the true student success, because right now we really don't have true student success model that we apply across. I don't want to dismiss that departments and divisions have things that they have put in place, so I don't want to take that away. But as a college, as an institution, we don't have a success model. So I think guided pathway is a way for us to build the foundation. And Andy and team did a great job of bringing it to the college, but we really need to do it.
Yeah. Additionally, as you're talking about the success and the retention and the issue with people staying after the first 15 credit hours, I think you'll see that a lot of people recognize that part of the challenge has historically been that in the first semester when somebody signs up for a specific program, oftentimes they're thrown into courses that have nothing to do with that program. And this idea of being able to give them early access to maybe one course in their program that doesn't have prerequisites and other classes that help contextualize what they're learning. You know, so if they're taking an English class, they can say, okay, write a paper about how this applies to an accounting subject or whatever, but it gives them a greater ability to invest in their future and really vet and assess whether or not they're in the right field. So, all these things are kind of happening at once. And, again, fantastic work by Colleen and Andy and the team as we're trying to move forward here.
Any other questions?
No, just a comment. I'm a big supporter of guided pathways. I've saw what it's been able to do across the country, especially in terms of your comments regarding remediation and the co-requisite courses and opportunities. Other states, some of the pushback that they've experienced as far as like co-requisites are concerned is faculty sometimes feel like they're being displaced because the co-requisite model is based on providing credit-bearing, it's a credit-bearing course as opposed to like a 097 math, and it also increases the retention rate, which is great. But what faculty have said across the country for those non-credit courses, they feel like they're being, taken away, or where is my existence? But to your point, in terms of taking courses that are relevant sooner and quicker, according to their major, I think it's just so important.
And I think we have an opportunity with Colleen and other faculty really talking about that, right? What does that look like, right? It doesn't look the same. And I think having that collaboration with faculty to develop that and having that discussion, I think that will go a long way. And I think they have started that work. So I think especially as it relates to the math and English,
oh my God,
they've been doing a lot of work.
It's important.
Yes.
And you have to move forward. You cannot move backward. But the study, the research is clear.
Yes.
You can't dump kids into non-credit courses and expect to see them graduate. So as far as starting at a different level, and hopefully that'll help with the attrition.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
I know we're about to lose Travis. Do you want to do your final student trustee?
Yeah, sure. I guess the only thing I really would like to say too is I've been here for 2 years, and I really appreciate the experience I've had here as a student trustee and working with everyone here on the board, getting a chance to be part of a presidential search and helping select a new president, working with Bill Reuter as interim president, and everyone who has given me the opportunity to be a student voice here. I think that has been something that I've definitely gotten a great experience on the board. There's always been an opportunity for me to be able to speak and on behalf of all the students and voice what concerns there may be, whether it's in the board meeting or even outside of the board meeting too. So I do want to say thank you for that opportunity. I didn't really get a chance to work with you very much, but with the other board members, it's been great. Also, too, on the side of a lot of the administration, have been able to work with Dr. Sagai a lot here, especially this past year, and a few other of the members sitting in the room. So I thank you for all the opportunities to really help advocate for students. I know Marcel, excited for a new student trustee here to take over and be able to be that voice. Hopefully we'll stay in contact here as I'm still here for another semester. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis.
And good luck with all of it.
Thank you.
The report of the president.
So we covered much of it. Clearly, our focus is trying to ensure that we take full advantage of the financial opportunities ahead of us. Strongly encouraging all the AAECC and FFECC members to seriously consider the retirement incentive opportunity. It's critical to the future of our college that we sustain and position ourselves for financial success. At a high level, I will say that, I'm thrilled with being able to work with Colleen Quinn and the faculty, recognizing the quality of some of the programs that we have are, bar none, amongst the top in the state. I don't know if many of you are aware, but in April, the registerednurses.org published a report stating that SUNY Erie City Nursing Program, for example, was ranked second in the state behind University of Buffalo.
Fantastic.
So again, for our program to be second in the state is just a phenomenal credit to, frankly, the entire faculty base for enabling such an environment. We also, if any of you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to tour our dental hygiene organization, which has 36 chairs. It's the third largest in the state, just a tremendous asset. But again, I talked about some of those specifics, but we also have obviously terrifically strong academics, whether it's general studies through architecture. We do have just a tremendous breadth of capability, and without a doubt, our greatest challenge moving forward is to figure out how best to sustain that level of expertise, recognizing that we do have to attrit our ranks in the proper way. I'm in awe of all the work that our senior executive staff have done. Eric, Adiam, Arda, Scott Ermer, frankly, we've got a core team, and we've recently added to it with Cynthia Buckley, who's our Vice President of HR, that are critical to us moving forward. And I candidly couldn't be happier with the fact that this group of people work together seamlessly. I mean, we might argue, we might wrestle over how best to affect change, but the passion that this team shows for trying to figure out how to address the issues in front of us is unmatched. So, having worked quite a few places, again, I'm thrilled with the level of commitment. And if anyone listened to my talk last night, my commencement speech, they get ownership. Without a doubt, they own their jobs and they're trying to figure out how to do best for the college. It's one thing that, frankly, moving forward, I'd very much like all of our faculty to kind of understand and try to embrace and ideally instill in our students what it means. Because when you talk about the persistence challenge that we have with our students, quite frankly, a lot of them will say, well, life gets in the way. But all of us lead lives. And we all have to figure out how best to accommodate and prioritize our day-to-day activities. And part of that is in education. I talk about emotional intelligence quite a bit. Emotional intelligence can be learned. And as I've mentioned, Forbes magazine, for example, highlights that the most important attribute somebody can have is to be conscientious. Every employer who is looking right now, more often than not, I talk to employers in the region, they don't talk about skill sets. They talk about attitude and whether or not people are conscientious, whether they have the people skills and the emotional intelligence to grow and be successful in the job. I mentioned last night that I'm not in this position because I'm an expert in high temperature oxide superconductors. I mean, that was my terminal degree thesis topic, dissertation topic. I never used that in my 30-year, 40-year career. Believe me, not once. And thank God, I think I threw out my dissertation. But, between us, it talks to the real value that we have to instill in our students. And it's got to come from our faculty. And we need the Faculty Federation. We need the Administrators Association. We need all the union leadership to recognize that as a priority. Teaching people how to think like successful people is critical, because at the end of the day, when we lose people, they don't come back. Or if they do come back, they're coming back in their late 20s, early 30s as non-traditional students who've recognized that they don't have the physical stamina to make money in a labor job. So again, the potential that we have to have a positive impact in this region, I think, is unmatched. We're the second largest educational facility out of the 20 in Western New York, with University of Buffalo obviously being, the giant. But we've got to get to the point where, again, we're relevant. And what makes us relevant, first and foremost, is that we're teaching our students how to be successful. I feel passionate about the fact that I'd hate for anybody to leave here and be told, you've got a great skill set, but you don't have the skills we need because you haven't learned how to communicate with people, you haven't learned, the core competencies of success in today's society. So I'll tell you, we've got tremendous opportunity. And I apologize for parroting this every session, but I'll tell you, again, I'm meeting with companies every week. And 201, they're interested in figuring out how better to partner with us to be able to develop a strong pipeline of students who have, again, the specific competencies they require in order for them to feel comfortable that they're hiring somebody who can grow in the position and grow to greater levels of responsibility. Our job shouldn't be to just get people out the door with a degree. Our job should be to make them successful. They're our future. If you recognize that 95% stay local to our region, our quality of life is 100% dependent on our success in educating people on how to be successful people in whatever field they go into. So again, I apologize for the high level general description, but the opportunity I think is just staggering. And yes, we've got some internal challenges. We've got fiscal issues, we've got IT issues, but what's going to carry the day is us banding together as a group of professionals focused on that end vision for the contribution we're making to the community. So again, I want to thank all the board members, all the people in the room, our faculty, which is exceptional. And again, to your point, Jeff, we're going to be pleading with some faculty to do us a service by actually leaving. It's a tough thing to walk away from your calling, but I'm approaching both the Faculty Federation and the Administrators Association to encourage us to be able to provide volunteer opportunities for them to come back and serve as mentors or counselors or something so that they can stay engaged in providing value to our students in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say, Dave, you did a good job not missing an opportunity yesterday to convey that message to the graduating students. It was a good speech, an important speech, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. We lost Trustee Phillips, but we do still have College Senate report. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hello. My name is Colleen Quinn. I am math faculty at South Campus, and I'm also our campus governance leader. So with the shared governance model, I'm the faculty chair of some of the things that we do, and a lot of the academic decisions get made on the floor of the College Senate. So part of my update is there's going to be 2 policies. I'm on the policy committee also.
Fantastic.
So we did pass 2 policies that we've been working on with faculty and administration. We started working on it in probably November. One is on grade change policy, and then another one is with academic standing policy. So they passed overwhelmingly at the Senate in the May meeting. So they're going to be going to the policy committee for the board and then potentially voted on in June. We'll see how it goes and how we work it out. We're also working on an assessment policy that was this insanely long, like 5 or 6 page policy that had procedures and all these outdated things. So we had a task force formed. I just got the final copy while I was here of what the policy is going to be, and we're looking to address that in June, and that'll also come, I think it's the day before the June policy board meeting. So lots of policy work coming your way. So we're just gonna go right for it. And I'll be there and questions and anything like that, and how the history of all these things are developed, I'll be available for questions. And then just to kind of touch on a few things with, I know we brought up math and developmental courses and co-requisite programs, but math and English, historically, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been gradually getting rid of our developmental courses. And we have a very small offering of the developmental courses across all 3 campuses, because we are doing the co-requisite model for math and for English, and they were both faculty-led initiatives. So our ALP kind of came out of our South Campus English faculty, Michael Rio, Eric Hendra, I'm trying to think who else was there, I think Chris Polinsky, and that was through a grant, and that is, they take their credited English with anyone who wants to be in the class, and then the kids in the ALP stay for like a second session. That helps with all the other pieces that they would have gotten in a developmental course. So with math, we're piloting it right now at all 3 campuses. We started the pilot during the pandemic. So it was all online at first. But what it is, we did, we've got 3 courses running. It's our MT 112, which is our liberal arts elective that just kind of transfers everywhere. MT 125, which is our college algebra. And then we also have MT 140, which is a statistics. So what it is we did a different model where we added on a credit or contact hour, where the students are getting the additional developmental coursework during the class. So I teach statistics, and one of the things we do is graphing and regression lines. So I would add a lesson on how to do graphing and like the coordinate plane and all those things before getting to those things. And so that's what we've been working on, and which my dissertation is on as well. I'll be defending this summer based on our work here at the college. So just to give a little context about what we're doing with those topics that are in line with the guided pathways.
Colleen, can I ask a question?
Sure can.
Can developmental courses, and I know we're calling them differently or restructuring them, but can they be done in the AP model, like as an AP model? So can we actually take these courses to the high schools and catch the students at that level?
We do have one of our faculty members Susan Rothwell, she's math faculty at South Campus. She is working with different schools where they are getting the developmental coursework right at the school, and she's working with the school administrators. So right now she's working with, it's a pilot as well with Depew Public Schools, and there are a few others that I just don't recall off the top of my head, but we are providing that developmental coursework for the students, and then they come to us once they finish that work at the high school level. And let's see, so some other good things I wanted to share about some of our faculty and staff. We had Dr. Carl Stokes Jr. He's in our Human Services Department, which he actually developed and developed the degree for Human Services. He just got a huge award at UB for his field work in social work, and it was fantastic. And he and his students have been down in the Jefferson community volunteering and working tirelessly since the tragedy last week. We also have Lydia Moskovic, Ellsworth now. She helped us all the time with the College Senate, doing our videos and things, and with Bob and everything. She was our video recorder, and now she's like our ITS help desk coordinator. She was just on Channel 4, actually, for her work as a rescue organization for draft horses. It's called Roan Chair. I'm gonna make sure I make, Roan Chair Ranch Draft Horses. They're in Varysburg, and where they rescue abused and neglected draft horses. And it was a nice little story on Channel 4 around the beginning of May. If you're interested, it's just, she does great stuff. She's on all the social media channels, and it's really great stuff to watch. And then a few other things. I know we talked about student enrollment for the summer. I'm also a general studies advisor, as well as many other math faculty, English faculty, all of the service departments. So we are working on a way to work with the general studies department to help get those students advised and registered for the fall semester. We don't do paid advisors over the summer anymore for general studies, so it's going to be on a volunteer basis, and we've set up a system for faculty to be able to do that. And the model we're kind of working with right now is so for example, I have 4 children, and I'm doing all this stuff all the time. But let's say all of a sudden, their baseball game got canceled. I got 2 hours now. You know, give me 5 students and I'll see if I can get through and get some students registered. Or, you know, I have 2 hours on Friday morning, give me some numbers or names, and then we kick it back to general studies with who we were able to get a hold of, who we couldn't, who got registered, things like that. So that's the model we're working with over the summer with Lori Rovnak, who's in general studies. Trying to think I'm gonna make sure I got all my things on here. I do want to mention with graduation, Chairwoman Denise, fantastic. And I mean, even President Balkin and Dr. Zagai, I've been at 15, I've been here 15 years. I've been to 15 graduations. It was very authentic and meaningful. I felt like you were not reading from scripts. It was heartfelt and just, you could feel it in the audience as everyone was talking up on stage. It was fantastic. I also want to say thank you again to Dr. Zagai for recognizing the faculty. It is the first time in the 15 graduations I've attended where we've been noticed or congratulated at a graduation ceremony. So it was very much appreciated from the faculty. I've heard quite a bit since then, like, oh my gosh, that was great, you know, because we are the ones in the classroom with the students, and, you know, we get to see our students come through. It's nice we kind of sit up front so we could catch them coming down and, you know, congratulate them and things like that. So it was a great ceremony yesterday, and it just, you know, I had a smile on my face, I think, the entire time, and left with a smile. It was just really just an awesome day. So thank you for your very candid and heartfelt speeches up on the stage. And then I know we have 3 new members. You're probably going to be doing some onboarding of some sort, I'm guessing, over the summer. If you want, I'd be happy to participate in any way you see that you want to learn more about the College Senate, what our work is, what we do as far as shared governance, and our piece and our how we work with the board and our administrators. So if you need me, call me. I got the kids in camp for 4 hours a day. So I'm around. So just let me know if you need me. I'm happy to, you know, come on in. So, and that's our College Senate report.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Colleen.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Colleen, thanks.
Yes,
I
thank
remember
you.
when I first came on the board, the College Senate was kind of a mysterious thing to me. I wasn't sure how it connected with the Board of Trustees and so forth. One good thing that I would recommend people trying is their meetings are televised every month. There are
Every month.
2:30 on Tuesdays, typically, a given Tuesday.
And they're all on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you want to go back and watch them.
Yeah.
So.
And Colleen runs a great meeting. She does have a smile on her face most of the time. She is very collaborative and creative, and it gives you a feeling that you can, outside the boardroom, for the broader college community. I think it's very useful, and particularly for the faculty, you know, because questions come out of the audience and concerns get raised. And I found it very interesting. So Kelly and Bob, I know you guys have the technology and you've sent it to me, but if you could just make sure every month to send to every trustee the link. And, oh, there's a meeting Tuesday with a reminder. We benefit by that. You know, can't make every meeting necessarily, but even several a year can give you a good connection that is, I think, very helpful.
Second Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Second
second
Tuesday?
Tuesday of the month, we have one coming up in June, and it is open meeting, so if anyone wanted to actually physically attend, more than welcome to. And they're also broadcasted live through the YouTube stream channel, and then also stored on YouTube to go back.
Yeah. Sometimes I play it back while I'm answering emails and stuff, just kind of play it in the.
And Dr. Balkin usually is invited and goes
Always.
and gives a rundown of what's on his mind, and so it's very useful.
And will there be one held in July?
No. Or August. God, no. There's one in June.
So that gives you 4 more hours now.
It does.
There you go.
4 more hours of freedom.
To call students. Okay, is there any old business? Hearing none. Is there any new business? Hearing none. We went into executive session in the early part of this meeting. The schedule of next month's meeting is June 30th, 2022 at 9 a.m. SUNY Erie North Campus. With that being said, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll say.
Second, thank you. Any opposed? I mean, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
You're
opposed?
ramrodding again.
I'm like, out here. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great to have you on board. Great to have you
Yep,
guys.
welcome.
Thank you. Happy New Year.